What's up, everybody? Welcome to Vater.com. My name is James Murphy from PeaceAndDrums.com, and for this lesson, I'm going to be breaking down some fundamentals of my glue method of soloing. So the first thing is the premise behind me coming up with the glue method was born from my struggle of drum soloing. So the one thing that I felt always happened when I played a drum solo was I ran into disorganization. So I felt disorganized when I played a drum solo. By the time I got 2 minutes in, I felt like I had played everything and I was kind of rambling at that point. So the glue method helped me to be more organized with the sticking patterns that I included in the solo. It also gave me the ability to get away from always going back to the drum beat. So once I left the drum beat and I was actually in the drum solo, now I'm also talking about a vamp solo. So most of the time if I'm with a band and they start playing a vamp and I want to play a drum solo over top of the vamp, I like to leave the drum beat and focus on just vocabulary and trying to create something within that vamp. You could also look at this in an open solo where there is no vamp, but the same thing would happen for me is that I felt like I got lost. So the one thing that's important for me to say about the glue method is that it's a really important way that I organize my stickings. There's two main categories in my brain when I think of my vocabulary. I have set ideas. So a set idea is a chop. And a chop follows a very specific set of criteria for me. The most important is that it has a specific starting point and ending point. You wouldn't take a chop and keep playing it over and over again. I think it loses its impact. You know, a chop is like a fancy phrase. You say it once, it makes its impact, and then move on to something else. And for me, a lot of times if I play a chop, it's because I was inspired by something that happened musically, or something that I had something premeditated that I wanted to try to get to. So on the other side of things is the category called glue stickings, and glue stickings also follow a different set of criteria. First of all, they're technically easy to play. They're not very complicated. They can very easily be played with dynamics, so to create something musical with loud and soft notes. Also the orchestration, is you can move them around the drum set pretty easily because the sticking pattern isn't that difficult. And also, as far as the speed, how fast I play it, I'm going to utilize my note rates. And remember, a note rate is the subdivision against the pulse. So if you have a quarter note, for note rates, for example, are eighth notes, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, 16th note triplets. So in this video, I'm going to introduce glue stickings to you guys. And since this is kind of part one of my glue method, is we're going to tackle what I would call step number 1, A and B of step number 1. And basically the A of step number 1 is to play each sticking with 16th notes between the snare drum and your kick drum. Not all glue stickings include the kick drum. Some of them only are played with the hands. And remember, guys, these stickings are not necessarily what's original. It's really the organization about how you apply the stickings, how you organize the stickings, and how we're trying to create something musical. You're going to be playing those between the snare drum and bass drum, as written in this video, and also your left foot is going to create the pulse. In this case, it's going to be eighth notes, and that's to create, that application to music. It has to follow a pulse. It can't be random. So our left foot is going to be independent playing that pulse, so eighth notes. So guys, in the next part of the video, I'll break down each sticking with those two steps. So step A of 1 and step B of 1, and I'll go through each sticking. You guys practice those. Remember, the most important thing here is developing the specific note rate and the memorization of the sticking. When I solo, the one thing that I never really want to worry about is the note rate. I don't want to worry about losing the speed, or because then I could lose the band. And also the sticking, I want the sticking to be sort of unconscious so I can focus on the more important things, which is being musical. Thinking about the loud and soft notes, the orchestration, or how to create the tension and release. Okay, guys, so let's go to the drum set, and I'll play each one of these stickings for you. There are 4 of them, and then I'll come back and give you a couple things to think about while you practice. All right, let's check it out. All right, guys, so in this part of the video, I'm going to demonstrate each one of the 4 stickings and basically run you through step 1A and step 1B. The A and the B, A is 16th notes and B is 16th note triplets. I'm also going to be keeping 8th notes on my left foot, 16th notes to start on my snare and my kick. The most important thing to realize is that this is just a pulse. Okay, so I've identified what the pulse is. It's 8th notes, and my subdivision on my snare drum and kick drum are 16th notes. Don't be so worried about where the 1 falls. If this is going 1 and 2 and 3 and don't think of it as 1 and 2 and you just think of it as 1 and 1 and 1 and it's just a pulse that we're trying to create that independence, and the aspect that we're strengthening is the control of the note rate, always being able to hear that note rate and to perform it. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this for you, each one of the stickings. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to kind of combine step 1A and 1B. So I'm going to transition right into the next note rate so you guys can hear that relationship with the same sticking. And then I'll stop, introduce the next sticking, transition from one note rate to the next, and so on. I'll do that for each one of the glue stickings. All right, check it out. All right, guys, so just really quickly, I'm going to pull that vamp back up that I was soloing at the top of the video, and I'm going to use those 4 stickings and kind of mix and match not only the stickings, the dynamic patterns, and also the note rates. The one thing to remember is that my hi-hat now is a musical choice, so I'm not going to keep time with my left foot because I'm going to be hitting it, or I'm going to be using that left foot in place of my right foot sometimes. Also, with the vamp, remember the quarter note is here. All right, guys, so there is an introduction into the glue method. Those are the first 4 stickings I teach all of my students. We go through a couple different steps. That's just step 1, A and B. So for this lesson, you guys are just focusing on that. That last demonstration I just did with the vamp is something that you could experiment with. And that's just you guys feeling really confident that you've memorized the sticking and you've also memorized the sticking within the different note rates. Then if you want, choose a vamp and you can play along with the vamp and apply those different stickings. But remember, we're not worrying about any resolve, so we're not trying to mark where the 1 is in the vamp. We're also not trying to get to any kicks or accents that are within the vamp. All I'm doing is playing different dynamic patterns, different orchestrations within the most important aspect of this method, which is the note rate. Staying dialed into that note rate is what keeps me on track when I solo. So just really focus on that aspect if you intend to experiment with the application. I also introduced that cool orchestration with your left foot on the hi-hat. So your left foot can actually play some of the foot patterns that your bass drum plays. It adds a nice distance between the kick drums, not feeling like you need to apply that kick drum every time you play the sticking. All right, guys, so have fun with this step, experiment, spend a lot of time. You don't need to rush to any creative application. Keep your eye out for more videos on this method, and we will further develop these stickings to try to get to that end goal of applying them in a drum solo, whether you're in a vamp or you're just creating an open solo. All right, happy practicing, and until next time, guys, peace and drums.